Good morning, everyone. Our scripture reading this morning comes from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verses 11 through 15. And rejoice before the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. You, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites in your towns, and the foreigners, the fatherless and the widows living among you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and follow carefully these decrees. Celebrate the festival of tabernacles for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and your winepress. Be joyful at your festival, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levites, the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns. For 7 days celebrate the festival to the Lord your God at the place the Lord will choose. For the Lord your God will bless you in all your harvest and in all the work of your hands, and your joy will be complete. The word of the Lord.
Yeah. My name is Walt. I'm one of the pastors here. It is great to be with you today. We're in the middle of a sermon series called Counterformed. All of us are influenced, shaped, formed by factors every single day. These could be advertisements, office culture, comparisons with other people just walking around the streets of Midtown, the music we listen to, the movies we watch, our families, and so much more. And many of these factors are good. Many are not, and actually form us in ways that are unhelpful, unhealthy, and they just feed into the issues that we have with things like insecurity and workaholism and greed and competitiveness. So we're going to take a few weeks this fall to consider what might it be like to be shaped in a different way, to be counterformed by Jesus in a way that leads us to a life of health and wholeness and blessing. So far, Pastor Drew has helped us consider what it means to live a life out of a sense of belovedness by God and to step into a spacious way of living in our city. Awesome invitations. And today, we're going to invite you to consider what it might mean to be shaped by celebration. Now, I know for some of you are like, yeah, I got this one. Like, next, it's not a problem, right? Learning how to be beloved and spacious in New York, like, that's a challenge, but, like, not celebrating. Like, we love a party. we love a good time. We love toasting our success. We love celebrating all the holidays. We love getting our flowers. Like, we're down for all of it. And if that's you, awesome. But my sense is that there's actually a lot for us to learn in this. I've been, in my 40-some years on earth, I have come to the conclusion that there are really two types of people. The people that like it when people sing happy birthday to them, and the people that do not. So turn to your neighbor, and which one are you? Take a moment. All right. Okay. All right, show of hands. Who are the divas in here? Who loves, kind of getting all the attention? Yeah. For those of you who don't, I won't ask you to raise your hands. I know you're already embarrassed enough by this question. For some of us, we're like, it might not really be worth like getting to the end of the year if this is what is waiting for us. Like, we just want to turn invisible. And I admit, for me, I kind of act like I don't want it, but really, like, I do a little bit. I like it. For those of us who get squeamish at the thought of people singing happy birthday to us, I think there's a few things going on. For sure, one of them is attention. Like, we don't like to be the focus of the room. But I think there can also be this sense that we didn't really do anything to be worthy of being celebrated, right? We made it around the sun again. We lived to tell the tale of another year. But is that like really an accomplishment? You know, a lot of people can say that this was what happened to them this year as well. Is it worth it? The fuss and the noise and the cake. And even if we do like being the star of the show at our own birthday party, how many of us also are associating celebration with achievement and with accomplishment, with closing the deal or getting the promotion or making it into that grad program or getting that raise or getting that praise that we've wanted for so long, right? Like so much of life, celebration is something that is earned. And if we haven't done what we needed to do, then celebration doesn't happen, right? We don't celebrate until there's something worth celebrating. The interesting thing is that when we play life this way, those initial celebrations are going to start out great, right? Those early career wins, those initial accomplishments, like, wow, amazing. But as time goes on, the thrill is going to wear off. The wins and the celebrations that come with them don't taste so sweet. It's kind of like how your like 6th or 7th taste of birthday cake doesn't really taste as good as the first, right? It can't quite match that sugar rush, that dopamine hit. Scottie Scheffler is the world #1 golfer. This man has been on an absolute tear this year. He's won 5 major tournaments since May, not to mention winning the Masters last year, getting the gold medal at the Paris Olympics. No other golfer has had more cause for celebration than Scottie. But he shocked the golfing world a couple months ago when he said this. He said, it's like showing up to the Masters every year. It's like, why do I want to win this golf tournament so badly? Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for 2 minutes. You win it, you celebrate, get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. Then it's like, okay, what are we going to eat for dinner? Life goes on. It feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes. I think Scheffler's tapping into something really profound. That even being at the pinnacle, the tippy top of our industry or our sport or our field is not going to be enough to ultimately fulfill us. And if our sense of self and our sense of celebration is only grounded in that pursuit or those moments, that we are going to be left feeling unsatisfied. Because if what is waiting for us at the mountaintop is 2 minutes of celebration, then what is waiting for us if we don't make it? Life is going to feel pretty barren, pretty empty. I've had seasons of my life where I didn't feel like I could do anything right. Everything was a mess. I was failing at work. I was failing at home. My sports teams weren't winning. It wasn't as bad as the Jets, but it was rough. I didn't feel like anything in life was worth celebrating, which ultimately meant that there was nothing about me that was worth celebrating. And it wasn't just that I was failing, it was that I was a failure. And those times are just dark and lonely and joyless. And I wonder how many of you have ever found yourself in a season like that, where you just couldn't get a win. Maybe it was in your work or your parenting or your relationships or your health or your fitness. There was nothing to celebrate, and so you just didn't celebrate, right? Maybe you're finding yourself in the midst of a season like that right now. And I think that if our understanding of celebration is tethered to our understanding of accomplishment, then we're going to be in for some difficult times, whether we succeed or not. Right? Is there anything wrong with celebrating our wins? No, of course not. But if it starts and it ends there, I think we are missing something far richer, far more satisfying. And I believe that the Christian story's understanding of celebration is so much more expansive than our own. And that if we allow ourselves to be formed by that, then we're going to experience life in an entirely different kind of way. Now, for some of us, church and celebration have not exactly gone together, right? If anything, it's been the opposite. Church has been somber and stern. There hasn't been a lot of room for laughter and joy and delight. A number of years ago, I had a group of friends, and they got involved with a really serious church. Now, there are many positive things about this church. It was serious about the Bible, serious about sin and confession, serious about the role of the church in the world, but it was also serious. And these friends of mine, who used to be people that enjoyed a good laugh and smiled a lot and were fun around them, like, guess what happened? They got pretty serious. And the issue wasn't that, we used to party all the time and then they became straight-laced and were just no fun to be around. No, it's nothing like that. It was that their smiles were replaced by furrowed brows. And their good-natured jokes were replaced by kind of trite Christian sayings that I think made them feel like they were being holy. Is that what following Jesus is supposed to look like? Some of us have had similar experiences with friends or in the church we grew up in. It was not a fun place. It was not a good time. And yet the irony is that when we look at the scriptures, we see a remarkable amount of joy and celebration woven in, the vast majority of which was actually initiated by God. There's a group of people, the Israelites, whom God was shaping to be like an entirely different people in the world. They were going to be different in terms of how they were shaped by intimacy and closeness with God, in terms of how they grew in an understanding of justice and how they worked and rested in a healthy way and how they were to celebrate. God commanded regular rhythms of celebration. And these weren't just like, pizza parties at the office. Not that we have anything against pizza here at Hope. If you've been around, we love it, right? But these were multi-day festivals. Here are some of the major ones. There was the Feast of Passover and Unleavened Bread and First Fruits in the spring, the Feast of Weeks and Pentecost in the early summer, the Feast of Booths and Tabernacles in the fall. It's like every time you turn the page on the calendar, there was another party coming your way. And in today's scripture, we learned a little bit about the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot. This feast was an opportunity, a call to remember the time in Israel's life where they wandered through the desert. And they were sustained every single day by God's presence, by God's provision of food and water, by God's protection from their enemies. And when they were in the desert, they were nomads. So they were constantly having to set up and tear down their dwellings and their buildings. And so when they celebrated this festival, they would create these little booths and little structures to help them remember that God was with them and that God provided. And you'll actually still see Jewish people practicing this today whenever that festival rolls around. There's a lot of richness here, but there's three main things that I want us to take away from it. And the first is the most important. Before God gives them all the party plans, he tells them this: remember, you were slaves in Egypt. The defining moment in the history of God's people up until that point was when God miraculously delivered them out of slavery and oppression and violence. They were completely powerless in Egypt, one of the mightiest nations in the world at that time. But God showed up, and God did what only God could do. And was it because these people were the best people ever? Right? Was it because no one was smarter or more accomplished or harder working than them, more just than them? No. God rescued God's people because he loved them, because he wanted them for himself. As the psalmist would say in Psalm 18, you delivered me because you delighted in me. And in the same way, when this feast was celebrated, it wasn't because they earned a feast day or because they hit their quota or because they got straight A's, because it was a time to remember that they were God's people. And that God loved them because of who they were, not what they did. This was the starting point for celebration. And do you see how this runs counter to so many of the ways that we operate in our world, right? So often we celebrate when we feel like we have done enough or when we have accomplished enough, that the celebration is at the end of a difficult road that we finally made it all the way down to. right? Again, are those moments bad? Like, no, not at all. But when we have a life with God, then we start with celebration and then work and serve out of that place of love and delight. This is what I love about these feasts and festivals. God's just like, hey, you know what? Stop everything. It's party time. Because God is a God of love and delight and joy. The second thing I want us to take away is just that, just how joyous this festival is. Right? Take a look at this passage again. See how many times words like rejoice, joyful, and celebrate are mentioned. It is chock full. Because God wants his people to know exactly what kind of party this is supposed to be, like a party. You know, some of us are totally vibing with this. We're like, yes, I'm there. Just tell me when, right? But I can imagine that for others of us, it might feel a little tough. Because there's just so much pain and so much difficulty in our lives and in the world. How could we possibly celebrate with so much hardship going on around us? Like, should we even be celebrating in the first place, right? Is this just escapism, just kind of putting our head in the sand, right? Closing our eyes to all of the injustice and suffering around us? Are we just trying to cultivate this mindset of blissful ignorance? You'd be right to ask those kinds of questions. And my response would be that the Christian story gives us a way to hold the painful realities of our world in their proper context. We can confront them without being overwhelmed by them. When we follow Jesus, we can and should take sin and selfishness seriously because we know that there is forgiveness and restoration waiting for us. We can combat division and polarization because we believe that God is reconciling people back to one another. We can speak out against injustice because God will bring peace and wholeness to our broken world. And we can grieve death but not fear it because God is bringing us out into life on the other side. And through these festivals, through times of reflection and repentance, through commands for justice and restoration, God was forming his people into a community that could hold the complex realities of our world together. And this keeps us from being overly dour or overly depressed about sin and injustice. And it also keeps us from being aloof and unconcerned about suffering. But I will say that the scales tip towards celebration. Celebration is both the starting point, who we are as God's beloved people, and the ending point, where we are going when Jesus returns to defeat sin and death forever. One of the images that we are given about this moment is that of a wedding feast, a celebration between Jesus and us, his church. And this will launch us into an eternity of joy and celebration forever. As C.S. Lewis famously said, joy is the serious business of heaven. And this is why God baked celebration into the life of his people. And when we get to the days of Jesus and the early church, things roll right on, right? Jesus is constantly at weddings and at dinner parties. Like, there was a reason people wanted to be around him. He's a party guy, right? And the church's biggest celebrations are Christmas and Easter, where we remember the great lengths that Jesus went to come and be with us and heal us and restore us and conquer sin and death so that we could be with him forever. And of course, they're all kind of like glommed up with these gross consumer and commercial trappings. But when we strip down that junk, we realize that we get to be a party that has been going on for 2,000 years. God is a God of celebration. Celebration is a feature of the Christian story. It's not a bug. And this brings me to the third takeaway. Celebration is for everyone. Everyone. God has a very clear command for these festivals. Be joyful at your festival. For you, your sons, your daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levites, the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns. During these appointed times, everyone stops. Everyone joins the fun, especially those who are typically working, those who are alone, those who are outsiders. God isn't just hosting a party for a certain group of privileged people. God is wanting for everyone to join in. And I love how God highlights the foreigner. All right, these are people who are just passing through or maybe in the process of relocating. They probably have little to no idea of who this God is, what this God is about, right? But rather than create some kind of us versus them distinction, God tells them, hey, come on in. Come right in. And if you've ever been, hosted for a holiday by a family that's not yours, or if you've ever been invited to a party by people you don't really know that well, in like a good way, not an awkward way, right? Like, you know how special that is. You know how honoring that is. When I was in college, I was involved in a Christian organization. And every summer we would have a camp. As soon as school let out, we would go up to this retreat center and we'd have a really amazing week together. And one year there was a woman who had been getting involved in our community. She'd been coming out to events and gatherings and really becoming kind of a part of our group. And she wasn't following Jesus. She was really spiritually curious. She was asking great questions. I'm pretty sure she was dating a guy in the fellowship. And she ended up coming to our camp that summer. And as we were getting to know her and getting to know her story, it came out that in the house she grew up in, birthdays were not celebrated at all. It just was not a thing. And so this woman had grown up never having anybody sing happy birthday to her, never having a birthday cake made, never having birthday gifts offered to her. And I know when some of us, we're uncomfortable when people sing happy birthday to us, but this is like a different level of sadness. And it turned out that that week that we were at camp was actually the week that her birthday fell on. And so we kind of got wind of it, and a couple of people, found a cupcake and a candle, and when it was lunch on her birthday, we all kind of gathered around her, and they gave her the cupcake, and we got to sing happy birthday to her. And it was so awesome. She had been this quiet and reserved woman, kind of closed up a little bit, but as we sang in our off-key way, she began to just open up and to smile and to beam. And it just felt like, man, this is what happens when someone is seen, when someone is celebrated for who they are, not just because of something that they've done. And it makes me think of those desert flowers that burst into bloom after only getting a few drops of water on them, right? It's dust and dry and dusty and drab, and then boom, an explosion of color and life. And when that happens on a large scale, like to a field or to a plain, we get this amazing phenomenon called a super bloom, right? A field that was once brown and gray is now lit up by vibrant colors and incredible shapes and textures. And I think that our city is desperate for the kind of water that only comes from God's delight and from God's joy. We do a whole lot of celebrating. A lot of it's about just what we've done, what we've accomplished. We do a lot of partying. My sense is that a lot of this is out of this just coping, numbing out, or distracting ourselves from the pain or the shame within. So what would it look like if we brought this spirit of celebration into our city? What kind of incredible blossoming and new life might we see? For this young woman, that week at camp helped launch her into a journey of following Jesus, the one who loved her and delighted in her and forgave her and restored her. And there are a few things I love more than celebrating stories like that. And I hope we get to experience that whenever someone is baptized and we get to hear their testimony, or when we celebrate stories of people coming to faith through Alpha. But there are so many more stories just out there, just waiting to happen. So how can we be a people who are formed by celebration so that we might bring the spirit of celebration out into the world around us? I wanted to share a few ideas for how we can practice this in our day-to-day. The first is the weekly practice of Sabbath. Pastor Drew touched on this last week as a crucial way for us to practice spaciousness, but it is also super beneficial when it comes to celebration. I hope we understand Sabbath to be a 24-hour period each week where we stop all paid and unpaid work, where we rest, delight, and contemplate the goodness of God. For a long time, I understood Sabbath to be a kind of serious and boring day where if I wasn't just praying or in the Bible at any given point on the day, like I was doing it wrong. Like I was not doing it right. But celebration and delight are key ingredients for God's vision for Sabbath. And so when we follow Jesus, we're called to fight against the temptation of having to see rest and Sabbath as one more thing that we're supposed to earn. And instead we see it as a gift that it is, right? It's not the ending point. Once we've done everything else that week that we're supposed to do, then we can finally rest because we deserved it. It's the starting point. It's God stopping us and being like, hey, it's party time. Let's go. So what does celebration and delight look like for you? For some of us, it's going to be hosting people for dinner or organizing a game night. For others, it's going to be taking a walk and journaling about what we are grateful for. Whatever it is, don't neglect it. Celebration is a discipline that will form us for the better if we let it. Second, we can regularly share appreciations and celebrations with those around us. If you sign up for our Emotionally Healthy Relationships course, which starts in about 2 weeks, which you totally should, then one of the first skills that you're going to learn is how to express appreciation and celebrate others. Speaking words of encouragement and delight is one of the best relationship skills that you could ever develop, and yet so often we overlook it, or we just assume that people know what we think about them, or like, I don't know, we don't want to gas them up too much, But these are words of life that are going to help pull people out of this dry and arid place and bring them into a life of bloom and beauty. My family practices this a few nights a week around our dinner table. We'll be hanging out, we'll be having a meal, and one of us will be like, hey, let's do a round of appreciations. Usually it's my 3-year-old son. He loves it. And so we'll go around and share things that we appreciate about one another, and it's very sweet, and it's an easy way to practice celebration. And it's also been a really important thing for me to even see how in myself, how easily I anchor celebrations in things my kids have done rather than who they are as little people loved by God. There was a moment where I realized there had been several nights in a row where I had shared appreciations based on things that they had done. Like, hey, appreciated how you picked up your toys, or didn't hit your sister, or didn't smear boogers on the wall, right? And even in this moment of celebration, I was reinforcing a narrative that you're going to be celebrated based on what you do. Now, is it important to positively reinforce things like not wiping boogers on the wall? Like, yes, definitely. But they need to know that they are loved and delighted in, first and foremost, because of who they are as our children and as God's children. And so I pivoted hard into appreciating things like their curiosity, or their sense of humor, or their creativity, and so on and so on. Who are the people in your life that you can make a regular habit of appreciating? These could be family, these could be friends, they could be colleagues or neighbors or people from your pickleball leagues or your yoga studio, right? Wherever you are around, who are the people that are around you? I promise you that these words are going to make a difference, and they are going to open up new avenues for connection and conversation, perhaps even as like, what's behind this? Who has made you into a person like this? And then you get to share that story in a perhaps beautiful and transformational way. And finally, I would just encourage you to get creative. Like, you know better than anyone else the kinds of celebrations that give you life the kinds of celebrations that would give your friends and your neighbors life, right? Just as God planned out numerous parties and festivals that people could just come in and enjoy, what could you plan for the sake of people enjoying life with you and with one another?